a Grammy on the shelf, a #1 on the chart, a voice the world wasn't ready to let go. Then silence. Welcome to Retro Vinyl, where the needle drops and the real stories come out.
And woman to woman, ain't that the same thing?
Today we count down 10 R&B artists from the 60s, 70s, and 80s who had everything it took, the voice, the moment, the record, and still watched it all slip away.
You can still stand tall.
These are not just music stories. These are human stories. And some of them will stop you cold.
There's a man in my house so big and strong.
Number 10. Color Him Father, the Winstons, 1969.
Think I'll call him father. Think I'll color him.
They won a Grammy. They created the most sampled beat in music history. And they never saw a single dollar from either one. The Winstons were a Washington, D.C. soul group led by tenor saxophonist Richard Louis Spencer, a man who had spent years playing backup for touring acts across the South, watching artists like Otis Redding perform without ever getting proper credit or compensation.
Never a frown, always a smile.
In early 1969, Spencer sat down and wrote Color Him Father, a heartfelt tribute to stepfathers, drawn from something painfully personal in his own life. The song sold over 1 million copies, hit #2 on the R&B chart and #7 on the Billboard Hot 100, and won the Grammy Award for Best Rhythm and Blues Song in 1970.
Real old man got killed in the war. She knows she had 7 kids.
But by the time that Grammy trophy arrived, the Winstons had already disbanded. Booking gigs as a multiracial group across the American South had been nearly impossible. The industry resistance broke the band apart before they could build on their momentum.
Heard her say she'd never love again.
Spencer returned to the East Coast, got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and quietly went to work for the Washington Metro Transit System. Meanwhile, the B-side of that Grammy-winning single, a short gospel instrumental called Amen Brother, contained a 7-second drum break performed by drummer Gregory Coleman.
And my mother, and he took us in. Now we belong to the man.
That 7 seconds became the Amen break, used in over 6,000 songs, sampled by NWA, Jay-Z, David Bowie, Oasis, 9 Inch Nails. The rhythmic foundation of drum and bass, jungle, breakbeat, and hip-hop as we know them.
My mother loves him, I can tell.
Richard Spencer didn't find out until 1996 when a record executive called asking for the master tape. By then, the statute of limitations on copyright infringement had already passed. Not 1 cent. Ever.
But there he stood with that big wide rim.
Drummer Gregory Coleman died in 2006, homeless, destitute, and reportedly unaware of the impact he had made on music history. In 2015, a British DJ organized a GoFundMe campaign and raised $24,000 for Spencer, the only money he ever received from one of the most used recordings in history.
I'm gonna color this man love, yes I will.
Spencer is now a Baptist minister and high school teacher. The beat plays on in someone's track somewhere right now as you watch this. Number 9. I Know You Don't Love Me No More. Barbara George, 1961.
I know you don't love me no more, no more, no more.
She was 19 years old. She wrote the song herself. And the man who was supposed to launch her career quietly spent her royalties on a Cadillac and a new wardrobe for her to keep her too distracted to notice. Barbara George was born Barbara Ann Smith in New Orleans' 9th Ward in 1942. She grew up singing in a Baptist church choir and had been filling notebooks with her own original songs since she was a teenager. Already married by age 16, She landed club gigs around New Orleans and caught the attention of singer Jessie Hill, who introduced her to record producer Harold Batiste, founder of Afro Records, All for One, a black-owned independent label. In June 1961, at Cosimo Matassa's legendary J&M Studios in New Orleans, George recorded I Know You Don't Love Me No More, a song she had written herself, inspired by the hymn Just a Closer Walk with Thee. It hit number 1 on the R&B chart and number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. It went gold. Sam Cooke gave it a shout-out by name in his 1962 hit Having a Party. It was covered by Ike and Tina Turner, Fats Domino, Bonnie Raitt, and Cher. Then, Juggy Murray of Sue Records, the national distributor, stepped in. He courted George with a Cadillac and a new wardrobe, quietly funded by her own royalties, and persuaded her to buy out her Afro contract and sign directly with him. Once she did, the magic disappeared. The raw New Orleans energy that made I Know What It Was, gone. Sue Records pushed her towards smoother, more commercial material. The follow-ups didn't chart. By 1963, Murray had dropped her. Her producer, Batiste, moved to Los Angeles and built a career with Sonny and Cher. Barbara George battled drug and alcohol problems through the 1960s, attempted a brief comeback in 1967, and ultimately retired from music to raise her 3 sons. She returned to her church choir in her final years. In 2001, she performed I Know one last time at the funeral of her longtime friend and New Orleans legend Ernie K. Doe. In 2006, she was diagnosed with hepatitis C. Barbara George died on August 10, 2006, 6 days before her 64th birthday. She wrote the song at 19. It outlived her by decades, and the man who exploited her spent her money on a car she thought was a gift. Number 8, Hypnotized, Linda Jones, 1967. People called her the next Aretha Franklin. She had the voice. She had the momentum. And then diabetes and a grueling tour schedule and a system that offered artists no safety net took everything. Linda Jones was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1944. She had been singing gospel since childhood, a fierce melismatic style that could level an entire congregation before it leveled a concert hall. By 1967, she signed to Loma Records and released Hypnotized, a churning, gospel-drenched soul ballad that hit the top 10 on the R&B chart. One kiss from your sweet, sweet lips. She followed it with What Have I Done to Make You Mad and That's When I'll Stop Loving You, both solid R&B chart performers. Critics compared her directly to Aretha Franklin. Industry insiders were certain she was about to break through to the same tier. But Linda Jones had been managing type 1 diabetes through one of the most physically demanding periods any artist can endure. Touring in the late 1960s meant non-stop movement, bad food, irregular schedules, late nights, stress. There was no infrastructure around artists like her to manage chronic illness on the road. Make me kiss you, my heart. No one stopped the machine. On March 14, 1972, Linda Jones was performing at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, one of the most iconic stages in American music. She slipped into a diabetic coma at the Apollo. She was 27 years old. She never regained consciousness and passed away shortly after. The industry moved on without pausing. Linda Jones never got her Aretha moment. But anyone who has ever heard Hypnotized, really heard it, knows she had everything it required. Number 7. Sideshow Blue Magic 1974. They were the most theatrical, most ethereal group to come out of Philadelphia's golden era of soul. And just as the world was catching up to them, one accident and one genre shift ended the classic era forever. Blue Magic formed in Philadelphia in the early 1970s, a 5-man vocal harmony group signed to Moat Productions under the umbrella of the legendary Philadelphia International Records machine.
See the man who's been crying.
Their sound was unlike anything else in soul, lush, cinematic, almost orchestral arrangements beneath falsetto harmonies that floated rather than shouted. They called their shows the Magic Show, and meant it literally. Elaborate costumes, theatrical staging, actual magic tricks woven into the performance.
It'll only cost you 50 cents to see.
Sideshow, released in 1974, became their defining moment. A slow, burning ballad comparing a failing relationship to a carnival act, full of melancholy and imagery. It reached number 1 on the R&B chart and number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Guaranteed to make you cry with the sound.
The follow-ups, 3-Ring Circus, Stop to Start, What's Come Over Me, all performed on the R&B chart. Then disco arrived. Radio wanted tempo. Labels wanted 4 on the floor. The lush, slow-moving ballad architecture that Blue Magic had mastered was suddenly out of fashion, not because it was lesser, but because the dance floor had changed the rules.
There's got to be no sadder show to see.
Internal friction began splitting the group's focus. Then lead singer Ted Mills suffered serious injuries in a car accident. Injuries that effectively ended Blue Magic's classic era on the spot. Mills eventually returned, and various versions of the group continued to record through the 1980s and 1990s.
What life has done to those like you.
But the sound of those original Mott recordings, the cinematic weight, the theatrical magic, was never fully recaptured. Blue Magic was one of Philadelphia soul's most original voices. Disco didn't kill them. It just made the world stop listening long enough for the damage to be done. Number 6. Woman to Woman. Shirley Brown, 1974. She had one of the most distinctive voices in the soul era. Her debut hit stayed at number 1 for 2 weeks. And the label that put her there went bankrupt 12 months later, taking her momentum with it.
Woman, if you ever been in love.
Shirley Brown was born in West Memphis, Arkansas in 1947. She had spent years working the gospel and R&B circuit in the South, playing clubs and church halls, building a voice that was raw, authoritative, and unforgettable. In 1974, she signed to Truth Records, a subsidiary of the legendary Stax Records out of Memphis, and recorded Woman to Woman.
Hey girl, I don't want no trouble now.
The song was something genuinely new. It opens not with music, but with a phone call. Brown's character dials the woman she suspects her man is seeing and addresses her woman to woman, with a mix of hurt, dignity, and raw nerve. It stayed at number 1 on the R&B chart for 2 weeks.
Tell me, should I just step aside?
It earned Brown a Grammy nomination. She was being marketed as the new face of Stax Records, the label that had defined Southern soul with Otis Redding, Isaac Hayes, and Sam and Dave. Then in 1975, Stax Records collapsed.
The best of my years went with that man.
A catastrophic set of financial mismanagements, failed distribution deals, and legal battles brought the entire operation down. Shirley Brown had no label, no promotional machine, no momentum infrastructure.
I've been loving the same man. He's my.
She recorded for smaller labels throughout the late 1970s and into the 1980s, Arista, Malaco, and continued performing on the Southern Soul circuit where she remained beloved. But the national breakthrough that Woman to Woman had promised never came.
You should be woman enough to understand.
Shirley Brown spent decades being one of the South's best kept secrets. A voice that deserved arena crowds and got club stages instead. She was never forgotten by those who heard her. She was just never heard by enough people.
I know, yeah. Good night, y'all. Thank you very much.
Quick pause, because if you're still here, you already understand something most people don't.
She knows she had 7 kids. I wouldn't have got very far.
These weren't just singers. These were artists who touched greatness and still lost everything around it. So if this video is hitting you right now, take 1 second and hit that like button. It helps Retro Vinyl reach the people who still care about real music history. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Because from this point forward, the stories stop feeling unfair and start feeling almost unbelievable. Let's get into the top 5.
Though you may not drive.
Number 5. Be Thankful for What You Got. William DeVaughn, 1974.
Just be thankful.
William DeVaughn was born in Washington, D.C. in 1947. He worked as a drafting technician for the federal government, a steady, unremarkable job with a pension and a paycheck, and spent his evenings writing songs that no one was asking him to write.
But remember, brothers and sisters.
In 1972, he placed an ad in a music magazine, found Philadelphia's Omega Sound, a production house that charged aspiring artists to record demos, and spent $900 of his own money to cut a track he had originally written under the title A Cadillac Don't Come Easy.
You can still stand tall.
The track was reworked into Be Thankful for What You Got. Producer John Davis brought in session musicians from MFSB, the house band of Philadelphia International Records, the same players behind the Soul Train theme, to lay down an arrangement so silky, so Curtis Mayfield adjacent, that radio stations across the country initially thought they were playing a Mayfield record. They weren't.
Diamond in the back, sunroof top, digging the scene with a gangster.
It sold nearly 2 million copies. It hit number 1 on the R&B chart and number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. In 2021, Rolling Stone listed it among the 500 greatest songs of all time.
Just be thankful.
Then, William DeVaughn walked away from it. He had become a Jehovah's Witness, and the combination of a nightclub industry and his deepening faith was irreconcilable. His producer, John Davis, told British magazine Blues and Soul that by the time the record hit number 1, DeVaughn was going door to door in Washington, D.C., handing out religious pamphlets.
May not drive a great big.
He would show up to his own concerts and tell the audience they shouldn't be in clubs, shouldn't be drinking, shouldn't be chasing anyone. He lost interest in the music business almost as quickly as it had noticed him.
You may not have.
He returned to work as a draftsman and spent time in a record store. He came back briefly in 1980 with a second album. The song lived on without him, sampled by NWA 1988 on Gangsta Gangsta. Massive Attack covered it in 1991, Ludacris referenced it in 2003, Ice Cube in 2008.
Just be thankful.
William DeVaughn recorded 2 albums in his life and still ended up on Rolling Stone's greatest songs list. He didn't care about any of it. And maybe that's the most remarkable thing about him.
Diamond in the back, sunroof top, digging the scene with a gangster.
Jay-Z, David Bowie, Oasis, 9 Inch Nails. the rhythmic foundation of drum and bass, jungle, breakbeat, and hip-hop as we know them.
Just be thankful.
Number 4, Always and Forever, Heatwave, 1977.
Always and forever.
Heatwave began with a letter. Johnny Wilder Jr. had served in the U.S. Army during Vietnam, spent time stationed in West Germany, and after his discharge decided to stay in Europe rather than come home. He had been performing solo in German taverns and nightclubs when he placed an ad in a British music publication looking for musicians.
There'll always be sunshine.
A Lincolnshire-born keyboardist and songwriter named Rod Temperton answered. Together, they built a band that was genuinely international, members from Switzerland, Czechoslovakia, Jamaica, and England, and began touring London's nightclub circuit as Chicago's Heatwave. Their 1976 debut album, Too Hot to Handle, gave them Boogie Nights, a top 2 UK hit. Then came Always and Forever, a Temperton-penned slow ballad so perfectly constructed that it has been played at weddings, proms, and quiet late-night moments ever since. It reached number 2 on the R&B chart and went platinum. Then tragedy arrived, and it didn't stop. Guitarist Jesse Witten was stabbed to death before the first album was even released. Bassist Mario Montese was stabbed by his girlfriend in 1978. He fell into a coma and woke up temporarily blind, mute, and paralyzed.
Something I can't explain.
On February 24, 1979, a dump truck broadsided Johnny Wilder's car in Dayton, Ohio. Johnny was paralyzed from the neck down. He was hospitalized for a year. He could no longer perform live ever again. Then, Rod Temperton quietly left the band to pursue songwriting.
When I look at you.
He went on to write Rock With You, Off the Wall, and the title track of the biggest selling album in history, Michael Jackson's Thriller. Heatwave continued. A replacement vocalist was found. Albums were recorded. But the creative engine, Temperton's writing, Wilder's voice on stage, was gone.
Take time to tell me.
Johnny Wilder continued producing from a wheelchair until his death in 2006. Rod Temperton died of cancer in 2016. Keith Wilder, Johnny's brother, died in 2017. 3/4 of the classic Heatwave lineup died within 11 years of each other.
You really care.
Always and Forever is still playing somewhere tonight at someone's wedding. Johnny Wilder never danced again after 1979. Number 3, Got to Be Real, Cheryl Lynn, 1978. Cheryl Lynn was born in Los Angeles in 1957. She had been singing since childhood, gospel, choir, talent shows, and had a voice with a range that very few artists in any generation could match. In 1976, she appeared on The Gong Show, the nationally broadcast talent competition, and sang with enough power to stop the panel cold. A Columbia Records executive saw the performance. By 1978, she had released Got to Be Real, a driving, disco-inflected R&B track with a vocal performance so commanding it announced a new era in its first 30 seconds. It hit number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the defining sounds of the late disco era. Her debut album went gold. Quincy Jones was among those who noticed. Her follow-up, Encore, hit number 11 on the R&B chart in 1983 and suggested she had the staying power to be a genuine long-term force. Then the lawsuits started. Cheryl Lynn became embroiled in a bitter, decade-long legal battle with Columbia Records over royalties and creative control, disputes over how her recordings were being handled, how her money was being counted, and who had the right to determine what her music would sound like. The litigation consumed the most productive years of her career. While Whitney Houston and Janet Jackson were reshaping what an R&B female artist could be in the 1980s, selling out arenas, breaking records, changing culture, Cheryl Lynn was in a courtroom. By the time she was free of the legal entanglement, the landscape had shifted completely. She continued recording independently, continued performing, and found devoted audiences who never forgot what she had done. But the mainstream never gave her a second moment to match the first one. Got to Be Real still plays at parties, in movies, in sample packs used by producers born 20 years after it was recorded. Cheryl Lynn's voice did not fade. The industry just buried it in paperwork. Number 1, Tender Love, Force MD's 1985.
Tender love, love so tender.
The Force MDs came out of Staten Island, New York. 5 young men who had grown up singing doo-wop on the Staten Island ferry, harmonizing in public until someone stopped to listen. They were discovered performing in the streets and eventually signed to Tommy Boy Records, where producers Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who were simultaneously building the careers of Janet Jackson and Alexander O'Neal, took interest in their sound. Tender Love, released in 1985 for the Crush Groove film soundtrack, became something no one had quite heard before.
I can thank you for all the tender love you gave to me.
It was doo-wop vocals, smooth, layered, classic, placed directly on top of a hip-hop production bed. It was, in real terms, a bridge between the vocal harmony traditions of the 1950s and 60s and what would become New Jack Swing in the late 1980s.
I want you more and more.
It reached number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the R&B chart. Wedding DJs played it from 1985 until it became a slow dance institution.
Baby, I surrender.
Then death started arriving. Antoine Lundy, one of the founding members, died in 1993. Stevie Lundy followed in 1998. Jesse Lee Daniels passed away in 1998 as well. 3 members of the Force MDs were gone within 5 years.
Loving me straight from the heart.
The group that had pioneered a sound that had shown a generation of producers what would happen when vocal harmony met hip-hop production was dismantled, not by creative failure or industry betrayal, but by death itself. The remaining members kept the name alive, kept performing, kept honoring what the group had built.
Here I lay all alone.
But the core that had made Tender Love possible was irreplaceable. The Force MDs deserve to be in the same conversation as New Edition and Boyz II Men. Instead, their legacy is a beautiful song, a broken lineup, and a sound that everyone else borrowed and no one properly credited.
Love so tender.
They were first, they were real, and they were robbed, not by a label, not by a lawsuit, but by time. 10 voices, 10 records, 10 stories that deserved better endings. Some were buried by the industry, some were taken by tragedy. But every one of them left behind music the world still refuses to forget.
It's more exciting than a one-man band.
A note, a groove, a moment that still hits the second the needle touches the vinyl.
Think I'm calling father. Think dark color him.
So now I want to hear from you. Which story stayed with you the most? And if retro vinyl brought you back to something real today, hit like, subscribe, and stay with us.
Our love is here to stay.
Until next time, keep the needle on the record and the volume where it belongs. Because here on Retro Vinyl, the grooves never lie.